What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what really moved it today, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. SoFi closed 0.61% in the green, despite having a fairly choppy first half of the day. 2042 the low, 2144 the high, and somewhat low volume. So 66.6 million shares being traded, 74.5 is the average. So this was the first time in almost a week and a half that SoFi did have lower than the average volume, but it wasn't just SoFi, it was kind of the broader market. And the reason why we had lower volume is because even though it was a volatile day for SoFi, generally speaking, it was a boring day because there wasn't anything news for SoFi, no SEC filings. Even on a macro standpoint, there wasn't any data points. You didn't have Trump causing any crap or anything like that today. It was just a very speculative day. So people were speculating on what is going to come tomorrow for CPI, what is going to be coming in the foreseeable future associated to tariffs. That is what people were trying to digest. So again, some people might call today rather boring or whatever else, but it is just institutions waiting for the next big catalyst, and that might be coming out tomorrow with CPI. But when it came down to SoFi, what caused all of this? I see some people online saying that it was hit by shorts. It wasn't necessarily shorts. It was legitimate institution selling because of a analyst rating. So we did have one that was posted early this morning by JPN, Devin, who does have a 71% success rating, which is rather good coming from a analyst standpoint. But they did downgrade SoFi from a buy to a hold and maintain their $17 price target. What is really weird about this analyst is if we kind of look back at their last rating, which was done on April the 25th, at the time, SoFi was $12.90 and they gave a buy $17 price target, representing a 31.78% upside. Now they're kind of switching it and anticipating a 20.3% upside. Generally speaking, if we kind of look here, they are very optimistic. So the analyst feels that everything that they cover, that there's more upside. So today they did give ratings on, looks like Dave, Cargill, Robinhood, and Schwab. But at the end of the day, they still feel all these stocks have more upside. So SoFi single-handedly is the only stock that they do feel there is downside on. So very odd stuff. And one thing that I wanted to bring up is SoFi over the last little bit has received its fair share of negative ratings. So we did have a 11, 13, 13, during of which didn't really affect SoFi. SoFi had FOMO. Honestly, it was just moving higher. Market didn't care about it. Today, we kind of had the first sign of weakness. And so even, like I said, going back to the sell ratings, you didn't even have any institutions selling. Nobody really cared about those ratings, but you had a $17 price target that was given, and that caused some kind of disruption today. So at the end of the day, I think this is exactly what I've been mentioning on how SoFi and pretty much the broader market is very overbought. So the first sign of weakness and kind of fear, uncertainty, you're going to see a lot of volatility, such as today. So again, with a lot of big data points and companies unveiling their earnings, the rest of this week, anticipate a lot of volatility. But aside from all that fun stuff, like I said, it wasn't shorts that caused that downtrend. It was one or possibly two institutions that did sell, as you can kind of see. First thing, for whatever reason, $22.3 million transaction. So that analyst rating did spook some institution, but it was short-lived because big money did start buying up SoFi, causing it to really move higher. So 1.3 million, 1.9. So those were some of the ones that did move it higher alongside dark pool transactions. So good to see big money is kind of still monitoring SoFi and willing to easily buy the dip, causing it to kind of move higher. Aside from that though, like I said, it wasn't necessarily shorts doing all that much today. Rather, they did return 682,000 shares. 14.26% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 154.73 million shares overall being shorted. So when it comes down to shorts, anticipate them also being fairly active this whole week. So today, surprisingly, they did return, but generally over the last week and a half, they've been very reactive to the stock price and really kind of breaking higher. So something just to keep in mind. But aside from that though, moving over to the options, you had 73 million in calls, 10 million in puts, 49% of all the options being done were bearish in nature. And most of that was actually in the first half of the trading day. So that obviously was reacting to the analyst rating. So I feel like that might be somewhat skewed. So take that with a grain of salt, of course. From the bulls standpoint, you do see a consensus for it to be roughly around that $22 to $23 range by the end of this week. Bears are anticipating for it to be kind of around that $20 range. So there is a little bit more downside anticipated. So just keep that in mind. Of course, options is just more of a sentiment. So it doesn't necessarily move the stock price up until either it comes in the money or whatever else. But good to see that big money was there to really buy the dip. There was a lot of big transactions that did occur, a lot of selling that caused some volatility. But like I said, I think that had to do with just more speculation on what is coming for the rest of the week. Aside from that, with it closing at 21.33, still trading between this R3 and this R2. 20.34 is that next strong kind of support level. Wasn't really touched, kind of came close to it today, but going forward, that's going to be the strong support. Just watch for that. And then 22.57 is going to be the next strong target / resistance, and similarly wasn't touched, and that would actually be a new 52-week high for SoFi. So let me know your viewpoint on these. And so if you are looking at averaging down, just kind of take note of a lot of the support levels. So 20.34, 18.97, and then 16.74. Aside from all that though, and analyst ratings, there wasn't really any articles coming out worthwhile to bring up. So it's just piggybacking off of the broader market for the most part. Tomorrow, most likely we will see a lot of volatility because of CPI. And if positive, then you could see a significant push higher. And the reason why people are caring so much about CPI on a side note is because this is for June. So it's always delayed information, but technically this is when Trump's tariffs fully took place. So again, this is going to be a good representation of if and potentially how damaging Trump's tariffs are. So again, that's why people are caring so much about this. And then when it comes down to Friday, we have the Michigan consumer sentiment. So that one's going to be a big one as well. But on the actual chart itself, even though we had some volatility, still closed above the ALMA, above all the key pivotal moving averages. Stochastic RSI is relatively overbought, but then again, I've been kind of saying that for the last 2 weeks. So the first sign of weakness, negative weakness, you could see, of course, a pullback. So just, again, watch a lot of those support levels just to hold to dollar cost average or whatever floats your boat. But then again, the broader market pretty much is very overbought as well. So it won't be just SoFi going down. It would be almost everything and their dog. So a couple of key points to watch for as well. Super trend is at 18.59. So right now you do have algorithmic trading really working on your side, really helping and pushing SoFi higher, similar to what happened between October and December. So all in all, the big things are still coming. Yes, we had some volatility today. Yes, we had a somewhat negative rating, but I don't think that's anything to panic about. I could be wrong. What do I know in life? So let me know your viewpoint. Are you somewhat worried about analysts starting to give negative ratings? Of course, this one analyst, who again does have a fairly good success rating, they being bearish on SoFi, do you think that is more of a sign that SoFi has peaked? And if so, where do you see things going? Do you think 17 is a realistic price target? Do you think 21 higher? What's your kind of realistic price targets for SoFi? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, if you are looking for some solid buy signals, pop over to my Patreon and get buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point lately. So worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.